Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sexology Podcast. I am so excited and honored to welcome Dr. Rachel Needle to our show. Dr. Rachel, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about so if we are in a new dating relationship, like we don't know the person, we're so excited about this. We are on date number 3. And then all of a sudden we notice that the partner is not getting aroused. What would be kind of things that it's helpful to say, and what are some of the things that are not helpful to say based on your experience?
Well, so in the moment, right? Be kind and maybe just switch gears. Do something else, other sexual activity. You can have plenty of fun without a erect penis. So you can switch gears, you can use toys, you can do other fun, arousing things. So to have fun and experience pleasure, there doesn't need to be a hard penis. So in the moment, be kind, switch gears, still continue to have fun. Then later, right? Not in that moment, but later, it's important that you communicate about it, because if you don't, you're just going to stay in your head, as you mentioned, and continue to make up these stories. And the more you do that and don't communicate, the more likely it is to impact the relationship. You can ask, some open-ended questions about it, and then, support each other and how to not allow this to be something that then leads to, performance anxiety for both of you.
Absolutely. And I love the idea of switching gear. I think long-term relationship or like just a dating relationship, I think it's helpful to have a menu of different options that you can do. And I tell people always just have a menu of options, that the things that you like, because for a number of different reasons, maybe penetration, like penile vaginal penetration, is not something you want to experiment in that moment, or there are some challenges. I love that. And someone that you just met, how do you know what are other things from the menus okay in that moment of
Yeah.
stress?
So communicate that as well, right? There are a lot of different things you can do sexually, and so you can go to some of the ones that a lot of people do enjoy, or in the moment you can communicate like, hey, I'd like to do this, what do you think? Or ask permission, get consent, and start doing other things.
Absolutely. And I think the other important thing is just not try to make excuses in the middle for them. I have some of my female clients, they get just so flustered and start like, oh yeah, actually we had a heavy meal, so that's why. Like I think just saying that at times I hear from my male clients is just not helpful. And I think then kind of like thinking about how can I make it pleasurable enough for me and for my partner is important. And what if we lose interest? We see that they don't have an erection, and all of a sudden we lose interest. Then what?
Yeah. I mean, first, I think it's also really important to mention that there's another side of this, right? For some female partners, the difficulty, the man having difficulty getting an erection or sustaining it might actually be preferred. It might then kind of reset the balance to what the other person prefers in a relationship. Maybe vaginal penetration is not something that is most preferred and enjoyed by them. Maybe they don't want it as much. So while we look at the side that can be detrimental to the relationship, there's also this, side that for some could actually make it a more even balance and more preferred sexual type of relationship. So I think we need to also remember that. But going back, I think that it's important to have a lot of sexual activities in your repertoire, right? And it's fun to be creative and try different things. So this can present an opportunity as well, not just until, but in addition to when your partner is able to maintain an erection, hopefully in the future.
I like that a lot. I didn't even for right now, I didn't think about what you mentioned, but sometimes also we feel obligated to kind of follow the script, right? Date number 3, first 2 dates went well. It means that like I have to have sex. And maybe you just don't like not feeling like it completely, you might not want to have the experience, but because then you see in the moment that like the partner doesn't have an erection, you might feel that, oh God, they're not interested in me, and that can shut you down. But perhaps that could be an opportunity to kind of experiment with all sorts of fun outer course things that you get to learn about the person's sexual energy and erotic part and playful part that
Yeah.
doesn't have that pressure of I gotta have intercourse.
Absolutely. And then, going back to what you mentioned earlier, the importance of remembering the different factors, which there are so many that can contribute to the difficulty with an erection. There's medical issues and then medications that are used to treat these medical issues, performance anxiety, poor lifestyle habits, as you mentioned, alcohol consumption. I mean, contextual factors, relational factors, there's so many different things. So rather than assume it's you or get frustrated, I think, it's important to remember those things. I mean, all men at some point in their lives are going to not get an erection or lose an erection during sex. That happens, right? Maybe not all the time, but it will happen probably at least one time to most men. So it's totally normal. For some, it happens and doesn't ever happen again. And when it does, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily have erectile dysfunction, right? From where it's more frequent and, occurs more often, causes distress, then yes, it might constitute an, diagnosis of ED. But for most men, this will happen at least one time in their life.
For most people, more than once. I think if you're
Exactly.
above age like 18,
Yep.
there are times that you're stressed, there are times that you drank too much, maybe you smoke stuff, and maybe you're anxious. There's so many things that can kind of lead to people not having an erection that they want to have, or you might gain it and you lose it. And it's just part of kind of being a kind of adult active sexual person. When you were talking about medication side effect, I was thinking about that. I hear sometimes from my listeners, I just talk about, my partner had to take the blue pill, or they went to kind of like get a pump, all of those things that some people kind of use to assist getting an erection. And they feel kind of like the female partner feels awkward and uncomfortable. Is that something that you recommend male partners to say ahead of time? Like, okay, this is the challenge I have, or you think it's okay in the moment to use that?
Yeah, I think communication is very important. And, if you can talk about something preemptively, I think it also takes some of that pressure off in the moment. So I think absolutely having conversations saying, listen, this is something that I've struggled with in the past. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, or whatever the facts are in your specific situation is very important. And it prevents, what can sometimes be experienced as discomfort or embarrassment or frustration later, although those things aren't necessary, but they are often reported. And when it comes to PD5 inhibitors, I mean, research has also shown that, women with partners who do use them have more satisfying sexual experiences than those who don't. So if you do really struggle and you use them, and that's something that's prescribed, then that's okay. But I think it's important also to, understand more about the origin before becoming reliant and doing that more long term. Is this physiological? Is this a real blood flow issue, or is there something else psychological going on that we can work on? But there's no, harm in using, and there's absolutely benefit in communicating ahead of time, especially.
Absolutely. And I love that you're talking about exploring the reasons, because again, people are just so scared of not getting an erection. They have younger clients that use it as insurance, that I just want to make sure I'm getting an erection. And I think then that might not be the best way of utilizing those medication.